Every so often, a familiar feeling creeps in while watching a romantic film. The sense that you've seen the story before. Not in a vague, genre-level way, but in something more specific. A particular setup, a certain kind of misunderstanding, a relationship dynamic that unfolds just a little too predictably. That's the reaction many viewers have had when comparing You, Me, and Tuscany to the 1995 classic While You Were Sleeping. At first glance, the two films seem quite different. One is rooted in a snowy Chicago setting built around a chance accident and a mistaken identity in a hospital room. The other unfolds in a picturesque European backdrop, leaning into the escapism and warmth typical of modern romance films. But once you move past the surface, the similarities become harder to ignore. Both stories are built on the same central premise. A woman is mistakenly believed to be engaged to a man, and instead of correcting the misunderstanding, she allows it to continue. That single decision becomes the engine of the entire narrative. It pulls her into a family dynamic she wasn't meant to be part of, creates emotional stakes tied to a relationship that doesn't truly exist, and ultimately sets up the inevitable turn. She falls for someone else within that same family. In While You Were Sleeping, that someone else is the man's brother. In You, Me, and Tuscany, it's the cousin. The substitution is minor, but the structure is nearly identical. The mistaken engagement invites her into the family. The lie, or at least the uncorrected assumption, deepens her connection to them. And the real emotional arc develops not with the original man, but with the quieter, more observant relative who sees her for who she actually is. What makes the comparison interesting is not that the two films share elements, but that they rely on the same narrative mechanism. The tension in both stories comes from the same question. How long can this misunderstanding continue before it unravels? And what happens emotionally when it does? Where the films diverge is in tone. While You Were Sleeping leans into character-driven humor and a sense of isolation that gives the story weight. Its protagonist is not just navigating a romantic mix-up, she's confronting loneliness and belonging in a more grounded way. You, Me, and Tuscany, by contrast, softens the edges. The stakes feel lighter, the setting more idyllic, and the emotional conflict less morally fraught. It's less about the consequences of the deception and more about the journey that unfolds around it. That difference in tone is enough to make the films feel distinct to some viewers, even if the underlying structure remains the same. One is built to resonate, the other is built to comfort. But strip away the setting, the pacing, and the stylistic choices, and the foundation is clear. Both films are telling a version of the same story, one that has proven remarkably durable in romantic storytelling. The idea of an accidental engagement left uncorrected, creating space for an unexpected and more meaningful relationship, is a narrative that continues to be revisited because it works. The question then isn't whether You, Me, and Tuscany copies While You Were Sleeping. It's whether it borrows from a framework that audiences already understand, and in that sense, the answer is yes, not as imitation, but as iteration. Romantic films rarely succeed by inventing entirely new plots. They succeed by reshaping familiar ones in ways that feel just new enough.